We're live. Yay.
There we go.
Ooh.
Yes. So this is the SaaSpocalypse Now. I don't know if you
Terrified?
saw this. About
I'm sorry. I said, should we be terrified?
yeah, I mean it's. I don't know if you saw the small thumbnail I put on
I did.
Substack, but
Yep.
I love the smell of AI slop in the morning.
Oh, man.
It's
So,
you know, a lot of I have a positive thing about it. Okay, the thing is, there's always the people that are crying wolf. And now, if you're a software engineer and you're seeing that and say, "Oh, software is going away, and I'm going to be jobless or whatever," um, I think you get the wrong attitude. I think it's you've got you've got to embrace those tools. You've got to
Sure.
you've got you know I've used them a little bit recently, as you guys have
you
seen.
have, yes.
And the thing is, I almost see them as I'm old enough to have seen code generators. Okay, so when you had code generator where you give a schema of a database, and the tool would generate all the forms, all the basic code, and then you would just add to it a little bit of your business logic. Okay, so and that was in the 90s with all the case tools and things like that.
Yep.
So it was already there. Okay, so now I'm just seeing AI just doing. I'm not saying the same thing. Okay, it's of course more advanced and the results are more polished, but it's the same idea. It's a code generator. But if the person behind doesn't know shit, or doesn't understand the concept, or doesn't have the right series of prompts to get to the result, um, you're not you've got to be able to be articulate, which in our industry is not always easy to find. But that's the future. Okay, it
Well,
will
I
improve
think
a
back,
lot of things.
yeah, like I think back 20 years, right? And we were very big in open source at the time. We were embracing open office, and we were really like bought into the whole concept of open source as a new business model, right? You paid for the value you got. You weren't paying for IP that got locked up someplace. And at that time, Salesforce was in its infancy, right? And the Salesforce logo was basically a software with a line through it, right? No more software, right? And it was just a new business model. And I think with AI, what we're going to see is more emerging business models. Instead of paying by the seat for your Salesforce seats, you'll be paying by the outcomes, right? So it'll be based upon how much value is being delivered to the business and what monetary value are you willing to put on that, right? So I don't see a whole lot changing except for the new business models that'll be emerging, and it's going to be who captures the imagination when they come up with these new business models, and what becomes more widely adopted. But I think outcome-based pricing is probably what we're going to see over the next few years, and it's going to be a lot less about vibe coding. Well, I mean, it's going to be very much about vibe coding, but in terms of the SaaS apocalypse, I think it's going to be a shift from paying by the seat to paying by the outcome.
I like that. I like.
Well,
I-
we already do a little bit charging our customers by the outcome in a way.
We do.
Some don't. Some don't. But I think now,
As an
yeah.
industry, we don't, right? As an industry, we either pay for licenses to be deployed on servers of certain capacities, or we charge by compute consumption in cloud technologies, and we pay by seat for some SaaS technologies. I can't think of many technologies where we're paying based on the outcome.
No, I would tend to agree with that. Like, I think there's a big discrepancy between what certain vendors provide and the value delivered. And I think the SaaSpocalypse is about that, right? It's obviously, as you mentioned, JGP, also about the basic fact that you can generate code and imagine at least smaller products independently of a vendor. Instead, you buy a tool that can kind of generate these small softwares for you. But a positive thing would be to have to have the possibility to uh, to decide more independently if you need to interact with a big software vendor or if you can build something yourself. I have some. I'm always difficult, right? So I have some reservations. uh, uh, what I'm thinking about is what does it actually entail to build a software product? It's a relatively simple performing one task or like a relatively simple capability leveraged by software. I think is also relatively easy to imagine as something that you can build yourself with these kind of technologies. But doesn't the SaaSpocalypse, if we take it seriously, doesn't that entail that we imagine that big platforms now, you mentioned Salesforce, and let's not mention any specific names, but let's think of like big platforms, right?
Yep.
Imagining those kind of products, that is really a complicated skill set. And product people are very strongly opinionated. So what happens internally in a company if we have, I don't know, 400 uh, product head 400 head of products, right? How does that work together?
So I love this concept of a product engineer, right? Where you've got a kind of the set of skills that a product manager would have, but also you can use vibe coding to actually implement the capabilities yourself. I think you're right. When you think about platforms, right, there's more to it than a single task that needs to be performed. And it does become very complicated, but I think we're going to figure it out. And I'm very
Mm.
excited. Just before this call began, I heard that our acquisition of Moby just closed. So um,
Oh, nice.
Yes. So a small European startup, right, AI natives, right, and we're sitting in a meeting room with them. We're talking about the fact that they only support the English language, a little bit of, interaction with Claude Code, and all of a sudden we can see additional languages being provided and tested and so on. So I think bigger, software ecosystems, will be, something that we can tackle with tools like Claude Code. And I think we're starting to see a bit of that internally, where we're taking modern tooling to some of our more mature legacy products, right? And figuring out how do we drive this forward. I mean, it's really simple things like feeding Figma designs into it, and all of a sudden you've got, a working UI. It's just, to me, it's incredible the pace at which things are moving. And
Oh yeah.
we've been so used to things moving at a glacial speed over the past decades, and now all of a sudden it's moving really quickly. But JGP, I hadn't thought about that analogy of like when all the 4GLs appeared in the 90s, right? And you're like, why have I learned forms coding when I could just, point this tool at my tables and it will come up with a very simple set of forms where I can insert, update, and delete data from the database, right? With almost no skills required. So yeah,
You know, I,
interesting.
I, I really I really think our industry is circling a lot. Okay, so in the old days when we were talking to mainframes, it was page by page. Okay, you fill a page, you send the page to the mainframe, you get the result back. Okay, and then we created a client server. And then we went to the web, but the early web, if you remember, it was a bit page by page as well. Okay, so the thing is, yes, we maybe we put a little bit of lipstick on the pig at every iteration, but the thing is, it's still a pig. Okay, so 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 just let's I think it's tooling. Tooling is getting better. The thing is, I was as I was vibe coding. I don't love it, but as I was designing some of the prototypes I this week, okay, and last week, it really reminded me of C and C++ compiling, okay, where Oh, okay, I finished. Okay. Oh, I want to make sure I'm going to make a clean make build. Okay, to get the whole thing work, and then it takes 3 hours to get to it. Okay, so at vibe coding is a little bit like that. You see Claude just doing all these things and sometimes you see something in a blip of a thing like a warning and a C compiler, and you say, "This is not good. I need to stop this guy before he's going to erase my production database." Uh, so so yeah. So I think there's, but we're still in the infancy. Okay, so let's put a little bit more
Mm.
lipstick and carry on.
So, I mean, for us, very fortunately, I don't know that I would think of the database as a pig as a lipstick or a pig, but that whole data layer, right, is continues to be incredibly important. And when you have all of these SaaS vendors that have, your data locked up in different data ecosystems, and you need the ability to bring all of that together so that you can answer questions, I do think that the tooling that becomes available through AI makes that a lot easier. But I think data continues to be incredibly important. And it'll be interesting to see how this rumors of the SaaSpocalypse impacts companies that are essentially providing that data layer to most of the world, right? So companies like Snowflake and Databricks and Oracle and Microsoft and Amazon, like Google, right? How do they ride this out? I think they're going to be just fine.
It's like as you both mentioned, I just have to say I agree strongly that it's like this. The pace of this is extreme, right? Like we're looking at something, and each time we think we have the complete answer or the the perspective right, it changes again and again. Um, eh, what do you think about like I don't have a finalized opinion about this, but I'm thinking about the idea of small pieces of software taking over from large platforms and that companies internally can kind of take back control of the data that now sits in systems of records behind um, an opaque platform that they can't really like get rid of. If we accept that, like I'm not saying that is necessarily the truth, but if we accept that premise for discussion, I sometimes like think that will we then look into a reality that mimics the hassle of microservices or even data mesh, right? Are
There's
we
no,
looking into the
no
same
hassle with
cultural obstacles? Come again?
There's no hassle with data mesh. What are you saying?
Are you bitter,
Exactly my
Nicky?
point.
Are you
Exactly.
bitter?
Yeah, so just like I'm just and I don't have a finalized opinion about this really, but I'm just thinking of like just like if I had to choose like with my architect values and nothing else, I would work for a company that runs on microservices because I think that is cool. And that is not very intelligent, but I just think it's super cool. However, not a lot of companies actually run on microservices. Those that do are extremely successful. So agreed on that, of course. But not a lot of companies are able to do it. Are we looking into the same kind of perspective with the SaaSpocalypse? Is the SaaSpocalypse something that will be for the selected few that manages to hire the right engineers with the right competencies at the right moment in time? Those that understand the past and all the code base of the company and can push that into the future? Or is this something for all companies out there? Again, I don't have the answer to this. This is just something I'm thinking about. Like, what did you think? If you even have an opinion about that?
For me, one thing about the SaaS was the SaaS revolution, okay, which was like, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, but
Me
the
Okay.
the rise of Salesforce, etc., was really like you don't have to install software, right? The thing is,
Mhm.
and the software cross thing that Salesforce was using was mostly because of that. You don't have to go on prem and spend trying to install a JVM and that wouldn't run correctly. Okay, um, so, so now it created something as well, which was twofolds. There was a kind of the web UI. Okay, so everybody was ready to, as a user, I'm going to use a web UI, and at this grew as well as as you're saying, all the microservice paradigm grew as well. Okay, now what I'm thinking is that the UI in the SaaSpocalypse, the UI is also getting away a little bit because we are chatting with as users, we are chatting with bots, okay, and those bots can actually render dashboards, can render images, can render Word documents, etc., etc. Okay, so they actually. Why do I need a point and click interface in a browser anymore? Okay, is HTML dead? Is HTML going to be the first victim of SaaSpocalypse? Okay, if CSS dies, I'm okay with it. But is that a consequence as well? Because we interact with the machine, okay, and voice doesn't really work for me because my French accent. But
I know, I thought you were talking to boats. I'm like, "What's he talking about?" So, yeah, I
I
can
also
imagine.
had to like,
um,
So Ramona has asked a question in the chat, and she asked a really interesting question because I have a very contrary point of view on this. What will happen when Anthropic 10x does their price subscription? And I get back to my comment about totally agree with value-based pricing. I think it's a model that we need to consider. And for me, if Anthropic is giving, 10x the values I'm paying for it, and I do think that I'm underpaying, and I'm happy to underpay for Anthropic and for OpenAI. I think if they're providing the value, then we absolutely should pay it. Like, if I think about some of our product teams and how they're using Anthropic today, we have some legacy products that have been around for about 20 years that are very poorly documented because the engineers hate writing documentation, right? So you set Claude Code on this, you use some GSD, and all of a sudden you can come up with a coherent set of documentation. You have an understanding as to how the code flows and the various code paths and so on. And I could never pay an engineer to do that. I could never pay an engineer to write documentation because they hate it and they would just back their heels, right? So I'm all for value based pricing and paying for what we get. So that being said, I think if we increase the efficiency of my engineering team by 50%, or if we wind up getting tasks completed that we wouldn't otherwise be able to complete, then I think we should pay for the value that's being delivered there. I'm fine with 10xing my subscription pricing if I'm getting the value for it.
but you on your point about documentation, Emma. Yeah, it's difficult to get engineers to write documentation, and it's even worse to actually try to make them write good documentation. And the ones that actually do finish as authors at O'Reilly. But that's a but the thing is, do we still need documentation? Because I took over a project with Claude, okay, and he just reverse engineers the whole shit of it in a matter of seconds. And the documentation, even if they would have some documentation, I'm not even sure it would be up to date compared to. So maybe focus on what is important, like maybe architecture, sequence diagrams, and things like that. But the code itself, who cares about documentation anymore?
No, documentation of the architecture, right? How does this all
Yeah,
fit?
yeah, yeah.
What's the role of the various pieces? How do you scale it, right? I mean, there's just so much to it. So Danielle asked a question here. So she says, we've all felt in SaaS that there are many niche markets that have popped up over the years with dozens of platforms, and we've all scratched our heads. Do we really need 17 different vendors attacking a very narrow slice of the market with many overlaps with adjacent solutions? I think perhaps this is an area that should be disrupted. And I agree, Danielle. I think that's ripe for disruption. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I have, yes. I mean, I think I think this is also something that we felt that we are feeling in the data community. Before AI, there was a lot of VC money being put into the absolute best data observability tool, the absolute best data quality tool, the absolute best data catalog, and so forth. And all these innovations are, as I see it, real innovations with real value. However, what we collectively call the modern data stack was exactly that. It was 17 different vendors attacking a very nice and a narrow slice of the market with many overlaps. And so I think, but this is a personal thing, right? Well, it's not, it is a trend in the market that we're moving towards bigger platforms as, for example, our uh, data intelligence platform, and uh, and uh, and so I see that as something um, that really has a potential to bring more sanity to some of the parts of the evolution in data and tech. So, but so it's kind of like it. The modern data stack was annoying but necessary. That kind of took it. It had its moment in time. Now, as we move on to AI, I think data intelligence platforms, some bigger data platforms, they have the obligation to serve AI innovation. And you can think of that as you want, but that I think is the frame of what the evolution looks like in the next couple of years.
I that's why I spend a lot of time on open standards like ODCS and ODPS and all those that are coming along. It's because I believe strongly in this interoperability. I don't believe in a single vendor solution. I don't believe in Microsoft delivering everything. But picking Microsoft, it could be IBM, Oracle, or whoever. Okay. When you go to an enterprise, you see the variety of all of those things, and then when you see a vendor that pretends that they can come and say, "Hey, I've got a solution to all your problems," um, and it's called Azure Data Factory. Yeah, of course, you've got to migrate everything then, and then it works fine. But I see, I'm optimistic. So, fine. Um, but the thing is, the reality is way more complex than that. Okay, imagine, and just not monolithic companies, but going through merger acquisition. We acquired just two companies ourselves. Okay, so they have different systems. They have different tools. So I think that's at least from the data perspective. Yeah, ODCS and ODPS are kind of the the conductor between all of that. So
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, the SaaSpocalypse in the last 5 minutes, if we're to like not wrap up because we will follow this obviously in the months to come. It's the stock exchanges all over the world, but I guess particularly in the US, a little bit a slaughterhouse right now because of the SaaSpocalypse, right? What is the nearest? What does the near future look like in terms of the SaaSpocalypse? Is this a something a passing trend? Will we talk about something completely different in a week or two from now, or is this going to increase? will we see the giants fall? What do you think?
So I'll go
Well,
first. I don't see the I see a new business model emerging. As I said at the beginning, value-based pricing, right? And they're gonna have to figure that out. What is the value that we're getting from the services that they provide? I also agree with JGP on the on openness and open standards, right? So having that ability to access the data across the various platforms to make sense of it, because we're not gonna go single vendor on anything. So opening that up a little better than has been done in the past, I think is going to be required. But I'm all for it's SaaS isn't going away. How it's sold is what's going to change.
no.
So,
Did you?
so, for me, the near future is our CTO office hour. And then after that, we all live like in Star Trek, where we have no currencies anymore. We just live from fresh water and air, and go back to the 60s when we could be free thinkers. So yeah, so there's something in between there. I don't know.
It's an interesting I don't know perspective. All right, Ola, your point of view?
I think that you're both onto something. I don't disagree in anything that has been said. I think of the psychological dimension of this also. I think there's just a bit of calling something the SaaSpocalypse clearly states that you feel the person that invented that must have been driven at least somewhat by revenge or bitterness, right? It's not a nice word. So there is that psychological element in it also, and I can't really like get myself to agree with the fact that we only consider SaaS vendors as as people that deserve an apocalypse. I think that's a little harsh. I think it's a little
Yeah,
harsh.
the chip
But
manufacturers are going through a bit of a rough ride at the moment as well, right? And that's
indeed,
something that's kind of counter to what we're saying about the SaaSpocalypse too.
indeed, great perspective. Okay, I think we should wrap it up with exactly that. Thank you everyone for being on. Come again, Emma?
I said that was a kind of a weird ending to the call, but it'll be interesting to check in on this every couple of months, right? And seeing if it's a prophetic or not. And my suspicion is that the SaaS vendors, particularly since they're acquiring more data layer assets, right? That I think they will.
Ooh, yeah. Who coined the name? I think it was a journalist. So they
Yep.
always
Yeah.
a little bit sensationalist. So
Yeah.
it's okay. It's the US. It's totally okay to use this.
All right. I will see you both on our CTO office hours, which starts in 1 minute. So people are probably panicking that we're not there yet. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Thank you
For joining.
for joining, everyone. Bye bye.